Hello, hello. Great. Looks like this is working. Hey, everybody. I have some idea on what I'm going to do here. I wanted to talk about creating, I don't know, I kind of wanted to do two things here. I wanted to create myself a tool, and I figured I could just stream while I do that. So let's just jump right in, whatever. Enough of the introductions. Let's just go for it. Let's see. Let's put down an edit graph. So really quick, the tool I want to make is just like a blend transform tool, right? So I'm just gonna like dink around in here a little bit, and then we can, put the tool together, right? Because I can just kind of within this AEPX graph, I can just figure out exactly what I want to make, and then we can rebuild it later. So let's see. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna put down a couple of transform objects to play with. I'm going to call this CTRL-A. I'm going to make another one and call this CTRL-B. And I'm going to make one more and just call this CTRL-mid. Right? And I want to create a kind of a transform blend in between them, right? So that this mid sits between the control A and B at all times. Let's actually blow this up so I can actually go in here and mess with this. So I'm going to need some inputs, right? I'm going to need some inputs to mess with so I can actually have my controls channels promoted so I can actually mess with them and I can see them, because otherwise you can't see them. And I'm going to promote the translation. I can't talk today. Translation and rotation of this control mid as well. Let's jump out of here. Now, I'm just going to pack this. And if you didn't know you could do this, you could do this. It's pretty cool. Right? So now I have my rig basically. And if I do an auto rig component and press enter, I have all three controls right in the center here. Control A, B, and mid. So, all right, I don't want them all sitting in the center like that. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a couple of transform builds, and I'm going to set the rest local for each one. But I also want to see what I'm doing while I'm editing this. So I'm going to pin this, and you know what? Let's put down an Apex configure controls instead. We'll get rid of this auto rig component by get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control A, control B, and I'm going to give these the 3D cross, right? So now we can actually see our 3D cross. I'm going to make one more, and I'm going to say control mid, and I'm gonna do the rubber ducky for this one. I like using the rubber ducky because it's actually a really good control for kind of seeing where your orientations are. So we're going to use this one instead. All right, so we're going to do a transform build, and now we're going to set the rest local of each of these guys, right? So, and again here, remember, this is just a test. I want to build my tool, and I'm just trying to figure out exactly how the tool is going to be made. And this is kind of, the sort of the process here, right? You dink around in one of these Apex graphs, you figure out the process, and then you rebuild it in a control script. But with Houdini 20.5, it's a little bit easier to do it. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Maybe I should have said that in the beginning so people will stick around. All right, let's put down a transform blend. And let's put this in the result of the parent. And of course, I want to set the blend to about 0.5. Okay, cool. So now I have this. Nice. But let's say I wanted to actually look at the control, right? I want to actually look there. So that means I'm going to have to set up a look transform. All right. So we want to put the X form into here. Let's say control B is the one we want to look at. And we'll just set up the look up in just a sec. So if we put this into the parent, we have this. So now we kind of have something that looks a little wacky. But let's actually set the look up to be where the control B is, right? So actually, no, not control B. We're going to do control A. Control A is going to be the root. So we're going to do a transform build. Let's see, transform build. And then I'm going to do a multiply. All right. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this transform. Let me see. How am I doing this? Okay, so root. I should have just called these root. All right, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm getting confused here. Lord or Lord. Okay, here we go. So I have the root and then I have the tip. And I want to look at the tip, right? And we are looking at the tip. But for some strange reason, the look at axis is always set to -1, which I really don't know why. So we're going to set that to 1. So now we're actually looking at the tip, okay? So I want to set this look up, right? Because as soon as I move it up, it flips. So we don't want that. We want the look up to always be up. So one quick way we could do that is actually just take the root, right? So we're gonna take this. We're gonna say move up, and we're gonna plug this into the lookup, right? So now it looks all kind of crazy and everything. But what if we move this transform build and if we move that up into the Y, we have a much more stable lookup axis, right? So this is the tool essentially that I want to make, and this is nice because we also have this control here, and because it's plugged into the parent, so we can actually go in and move this around. And so this is the setup that we want, right? This is our setup. Okay. So now that we kind of figured out essentially what we're going to do and how we want to do this, let's actually take it and do it in like a, an actual setting. Okay. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that anymore. Okay. So let's say we're going to build an arm, right? So let's build a little bit of an arm rig, and I'm going to go in and just rename these really quick. So shoulder and elbow and wrist. All right, now let's see. Let's add some mid controls, right? This would be kind of like twist controls. We're not going to do a twist setup, okay? Because the twist setup is actually way more complicated. And again, I'm going to try to keep this relatively simple, okay? Because this is kind of complex stuff, really. So the tool that I'm going to make, I'm going to try to keep it. I'm going to try to keep it simple. You're welcome. It's fun, really. I like trying to demystify this stuff. All right, so we're going to do a couple of... Okay, so we're going to use a rig VOP to create these twist joints, right? So I'm just going to do one for now. And then if I feel like I need another, then I'll do that. So I really like using the rig VOPs for making my extra joints. If I just go in and name these shoulder, elbow, and then say by name, we'll find those joints. So let's add a joint. And so the way I want to do this is I want to have a root joint for our twist that sits right on the shoulder, that's parented to the shoulder. So I'm going to call this upper arm root. I guess I can call this twist, right? All right, so we're going to go X form, and this is going to be our parent. And I promise you people, we're going to get to actually building our tool in just a moment. I'm just doing the setup from scratch so you can see how to actually do this. Let's add another joint, and we're just going to say upper arm twist. Okay, so we want this to sit right in between here. So let's put down a blend. Is it blend transforms? Yeah. So we're going to grab our shoulder, and we're going to grab the elbow, and we're going to put that into the X form. Okay. We're going to put this at 0.5. And when you do your blend transform, it's a good idea. Like when you're doing it in a rig VOP, it's a good idea to turn off rotate. because it tends to kind of screw up the rotations a little bit. So you just get more of a predictable result when you turn off rotate. And then the point that this point number is going to go into here. So now if I look at my hierarchy right here, I have shoulder, elbow, wrist, and then the elbow, or rather the upper arm twist root is here, and then this is there. Okay. Man. Okay, so we can basically go into here in our rig pose, and we can also kind of just test things out to see how things are looking. I can go in and show my node information. I can look at my transforms, and I can see how my transforms are doing. All right, let's put down and orient joints. And I'm going to orient the joints, and I'm going to say, I think the only thing I really need to change here is just the up vector. And I get some really nice oriented joints. So that's a pretty important step. You're going to want to do that. Okay. So I think we're ready to pack our folder, but I'm going to pretend like this is a real world scenario, right? So I'm going to make 2 skeletons. So I'm going to have base and guides, right? So we're going to do that, pack both of those, say base skell and guides skell. All right, now basically we're just imagining that we're in some real world scenario, and we need our blend transform, you know, and we have some sort of an arm or whatever. So let's say we want to do an FK transform. Okay, so cool. We have our FK transform in here. We should have rotation and everything. Awesome. Let's actually do rotation and translation. And for this example, I also want to set up an IK, right? So let's do that pretty quick. We'll just set up a quick IK here. Okay, so I don't want my twist joints in there. So I'm going to say name equals shoulder, name equals elbow, name equals wrist. Do that. And I'm going to say arm. Okay, cool. So now I have those arm tags. Let's go back down here. And let's do, let me see, multi-IK. And in the driven, we're going to hit star, whatever. We don't really need that because we only have one. Hit arm. And now I should have my IKs in there. Wow, this is like really big. Hang on. How big is this? If I throw it on a cube, I can actually see how big this is. And it looks like it's sort of ginormous. So can I scale this down? Maybe I can just scale it down. It's probably going to cause me some problems. Let me see. How's this looking? Yeah, those are still doing that. Okay, whatever. Let's get rid of this. All right. Let's just make the shapes bigger. Okay, cool. So now I have my IK. And I can go into here and I can move that around. Okay, cool. So moving on, now I can go and start messing around with my tool. And let's say I want to mess with this upper arm twist here. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. And this is the part I really like. Now we're in the fun stuff. How deep are we in this? This has been going on for what? About 14 minutes? Holy cow, 14 minutes, and we're just getting into it now. Okay. Wow, and I'm trying to do this in like an hour. So, man, not doing too good. All right. Because I want to get to doing this in AEPX script too, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see if we have enough time here. Okay, let's see, people. Okay, so I'm going to do an AEPX edit graph. And, you know, there's all that little setup that you have to do in here. Like, you know, if I go into, you know, any graph, right? And if what's really nice about Houdini 20.5 is that now we can actually see the component script, right? So this is the component script for our multi-IK tool, right? This is what the developers at SideFX have set up for us. You know, we could pick this apart. We can take out components and make our own. So this is the same process basically that we're going to use right now to create our own tool. And again, you can even save out your tool here to a specific folder where then you can actually use the auto rig component so that you can actually pull it in this way instead of pulling it in, through here. So now if I go to my AEPX graph, it's empty. But what's a little trick here, pro tip, if you have your snippet on and you go to the component script, you can you have a nice little empty setup here. So you can just grab that, copy it, and then paste it into here. Okay, so now you have the base setup to keep your graph in line. So now if I use the second input, everything works. Handy dandy. So for instance, like if I were to slice off this character here, we get an error, right? So we need that on there. I'm still getting an error, but everything is fine because it's telling me that we need a component output, but it's okay. I think that's one thing that needs to be updated with Apex is these error messages. They're really aggressive. It's like, you did something wrong. Sorry, I'm just drinking my coffee here. All right. Super cool. So basically, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want 3 joints or 3 controls, or three joints that we're going to want to look for, right? Because we want a root and a tip, and we want the mid joint that we're going to want to control. So let's do some find nodes, or rather find node. So we're going to find our root, and let's blow this up. And if you're new to component scripts, just kind of bear with me here. Like, I'm not going to go like super deep into, how component scripts work. I'm just going to, like build the tool, and hopefully you guys can pick up something from it. So one thing I like to do when I'm building a tool is I like to actually just throw down a null Apex graph. Kind of keeps things a little organized, right? And then I'll call this like graph in. These component scripts can get a little wiry, so like, I like to color code everything, anything to do with the graph. I color it yellow. The node things, I color them pink. I'm a little weird like that, but I don't know, it helps things keep organized. So let's call this root. Let's call this tip. All right, and we're going to plug these into the path. Okay, so now we have our root and our tip, but not quite. We have to fill these out. So let me put in shoulder, and I'm going to put in, we're going to look for the elbow in this case. And let's actually do one more. It's going to be the mid. Why do I have foot? Okay, find, tip, find, mid. I think I drank too much coffee. I'm like super wired right now. Okay, here we go. All right, so now we're finding all of those, right? If I go to, we don't want that. We want upper arm twist. Okay. Okay, so now, before Houdini 20.5, it was a real kind of like rigmarole to get things to, to set up, like your blend transform or like a look, like, you had to add the node, right? And then do all this like crazy wiring and stuff like that. You don't really have to do that anymore. It's actually pretty nice. What you can do is make something called a graph template, okay? And the graph template is super awesome because you could basically just go into here and, just add whatever you want, merge it with the main graph, and it'll just toss whatever you have in here into your main graph. So if I go into here and just do this, and this is graph, so I'm going to merge those or turn those yellow. And now I want to see my graph, right? So, I want to see how my graph is being updated. So I'm going to unpack the folder. And let's see, we're going to want base rig. And we're going to want, just going to do an Apex layout graph. Okay, I'm going to split this into 2 views. And, okay, I should have saved this. Man, I should save this. Hang on, let me save this. I don't want you to see my folders here. Hang on. This is important. Just bear with me for just a sec. Oh my God. I'm totally going to edit this out. Okay, let's see. Custom tools. Yeah, because you never know if things are going to fail on you. Beta people. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, and here are those transform objects that I made. Right? I mean, how amazing is that? So I can jump back into here. I don't really need to. I can jump in here, right? Because this is already pinned. And if I jump into there, and if I like change the colors, you know, like, so basically anything you throw in your graph template gets picked up. It gets merged with your graph. So you can basically make a graph and then merge it with your main graph, which is, you know, amazing. And, you know, it makes the process of doing something like this much easier, because now I could just take this setup that I made, just copy it, bring it into here, and start working with it in here. Right? So now I'm going to start making my subgraph, or like something like a subgraph, right? Like it's, you know, you're basically building your own little tool, and then you can turn this into a little subnet. So I'm going to call this _blend_ because I'm going to want to look for this when I make it, and you'll see what I mean in just a sec. So I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to make some inputs and outputs, right? So that we can, you know, like figure this out. All right. So let's see. I want a value matrix, and I'm only doing this just to kind of, like I'm doing it this way, like, you know, creating these value matrices to kind of keep things organized. So we're going to go like this. We're going to go like that. We're going to call this root, and then we're going to call this tip. Okay, that's going to go A and B, and then I'm going to want access to this blend as well. So I'm going to make a value float. I'm going to plug that into here, blend. All right, we're going to call this blend. And now I have my inputs, and then the output is going to be here. Okay, and for now, I'm just going to leave all of this. I might want access to the look at access maybe, but for now, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we have our xform out. So if I jump out of this, I now have this nice little subnet with a root, tip, and blend. So I'm actually going to take this, right, cut it, copy it, and now I have this. Delete that. So now I have my little blend node within this graph template. And when we merge it, I have my little blend node. Super cool, huh? Okay. So what do we do now exactly? Well, since I have this, all I really need to do is kind of just make my connections, right? So let's go. And first thing I need to do in order to properly make our connections is, here, why don't we open this up so we can see what we're doing. And so far we don't really have, you know, anything. Let's jump into here. I want to pin this because I want to see what's going on. So far, yeah, like I said, we don't have anything. So what we're going to need is we're going to need some find and connect inputs. So what these nodes do is they just kind of go through your graph, and they look for 2 nodes. They look for a source node and a destination node, and then they make the input connections. So let's call this, I'm going to need 3 of these, right? Because I'm going to need connection to the root, to the tip, and to the blend. So we're going to go like that. That goes into graph, not to the destination node. And then we're going to need one more, right? Because we're going to make 3 connections. So we're going to say connect. And again, it's good to, you know, it could be a little tedious, but it's a good idea to, you know, name everything. Because if you come back and you got all these crazy wires and nodes, it's good to know where everything is. Okay, so connect mid. And I like to color these guys like a bit of a darker yellow. Okay, cool. But the thing is that we need to find this node now, right? So let's move this over here. I'm gonna hit save really quick because that's important. Okay, so now that I have this, let's find that node. And I've named that node so that I can find it pretty easily. So we have this node. I'm going to say find blend node. And the path is just, I'm just going to code this right in, right? Just kind of hard code it, just boom. It's called blend. And it's never going to be called anything else, right? But here's the important thing. If I want to use this multiple times, we need to give this a unique name. So we're going to put down a node called update node. So we're going to plug in the graph. This is going to go into the node ID. And we're going to say change name. Okay, so we have our blend node here. And then we have this. And our graph disappeared because we're cutting it off. So we need to plug that back in. Everything comes back. Okay. Now, what I'm going to want to name this is the name of our mid joint. Right? I want to grab this name and then give it another unique name, right? So we can do that using a string format. Let's open this up a little bit so you can see what we're doing. I'm going to put that in a string format. So I'm going to take this same string here, plug this into the first argument, okay? And I'm going to put in curly brackets. So that's going to take in that first argument, right? So now it's going to be called, you know, upper arm something, underscore, and I'm going to say blend node. Okay. All right, now watch this. So if we look over here at the blend, once I plug this in, boom, now we have upper arm twist blend node. Very cool. And another thing well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and set up our you know, connections first. Okay, so now I have my node, right? Anything, again, you know, color stuff, anything that I do that has to do with a node, I color it green. Okay, saved again. All right, so now we're starting to get pretty wire heavy here, people, but let's move these over. Let's try to keep this organized. So we're going to plug in the root. Let's set up all of our connections. So this is going to be the source, right? Because we're going to grab the X forms from these guys, right? From our transform objects, we're going to get the X form from these and plug it into the inputs here. So the source node is what we're looking for. And then this is going to be the destination, right? So this is coming from, and this is going to. Okay. So I'm going to open this up so that we can see what happens here. All right, let's open this up. So the source name we want is xform. And the destination is going to be this root. And didn't work. Of course it didn't work. What did I do wrong? So we have the root, path, shoulder. Let's see. Oh, I'm definitely doing something wrong. So we have into the root destination name. This is our node. We have our node ID, made the blend. That's interesting. Let's see, oh yeah. Let's see. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can see your message here. I wrote X from. Oh my gosh, did you get one letter wrong and everything falls apart? Okay, there we go. Boom. So tip, and thank you for that. Let's try to make sure that's correct. X form. Okay, great. So now everything is plugged in. You know what we can do? We can even go into here and change the color of this so I can see a little bit better. Yeah, something like that. That's nice. Okay, so now we're going to want to get this X form and plug that into our mid. Where's our mid? It's around here somewhere. The upper arm twist, right? So we're going to take this node ID and this is going to be our source, right? Because now we're looking for this and that's going to plug into the mid. And we are going to, and you know, just so we can really see what's going on here, I'm going to put down configure controls and we're going to get our upper arm twist. Okay. We're going to use our rubber again. Now, if I look at the rubber, it should be looking at this, or like looking down towards the elbow. I'll blow it up a little bit so you can see it. I'll color it red because you can really see red. It's very visible. I wish this error message would go away. If I go here, no, it's still doing it. That's fine. All right, let's see. So let's plug in this last thing here. So remember, we're gonna want to go from the X form to the parent. And boom-ish. Right, yeah. So here's the problem here. If we plug this into the parent, we lose the original parenting that we had before. So we don't want to do it this way, right? Because you see how this is parented to here? Now, what we're going to want to do, and I don't want to plug it into the rest local either, because if I plug it into the, I'm sorry, not the rest, if I don't want to plug it into the X form, that's what I meant to say. Because then we won't have access to the actual control. We won't be able to move it around and animate it. So what we're going to want to use is the rest local, okay? Right? I think that's what I want to do. Let me see. I wonder how I did this before. Let me see. Yeah, I think we want to put this in the rest local. No, we do want to put it in the parent. Okay. Right? Oh, I don't remember now. All right, whatever. Let's go ahead and just plug it into the parent. And now if I go here, let's hook this back up again. Yeah, see, this is what happens when you don't do any proper okay, there we go. So that's kind of working. Let me see. So let me get rid of all these controls, except we want our twist controls. Let me say star twist so I can see it. Okay, so now we have our twist control. So we have X form parent, and let's see. So that's going into here, that's going into there. So now if I go into my graph template and set the blend to 0.5, I get something like that. Now let's try plugging this into the rest local instead. All right, if I plug it in the rest local, we get something like that. Okay, now the issue is that if I plug it into the parent, our rest local is throwing it off, right? Because we're inheriting the control of this guy, right? It actually doesn't matter really if we're reparenting things, because you know, we'll still have that parent setup, at least in our joints. You see how the joints are still connected. So what we need to do is actually set the rest local transform to 0, and then we'll get a better result. So there's actually a really nice component where we can set our rest transform. Okay, and I'm going to do this last. All right, so we're going to get our mid node. That's going to go into here, into the node ID. And we're going to do a value matrix. Just make a quick little matrix here. And we're going to put that in the graph, and boom. Okay, so now we get a much better result. But we're still not getting what we wanted. Let me see. Okay, so the joints are oriented correctly. Yes, this is being recorded, as a matter of fact. This is live, so this will be up later, along with all my little mistakes and whatnot. So we're not getting things properly set up. Let me go into here. So let me see. So we have our root, we have our tip, and the look. Oh, because I don't have the look at plugged in yet. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the tip is what we're going to want to look at. So boom. Now, how cool is that? So now we have so it's like, since we have this in our graph template, we can just go right in and start messing around with the values, which is really cool. And it's a lot more, it's a much more direct way of doing things, which is great. Okay. So I wonder what's going on here. So if I did this, oh, right, because we don't have our root plugged in. So now if I did this, just imagine that there's a point here that's moving up and down. It's kind of hard to imagine, but the thing is that we need this root transform to go into there. So now, basically the way this works is just like matrix multiplication is actually pretty simple. If you just kind of do it through nodes, like if you're actually trying to do it on paper, it's like impossible. But basically what it is like this transform is just moving up in the Y. Let's call this just 1 unit, right? Boom. And then it takes the root, this root transform, which is our shoulder skeleton, right? The shoulder joint. And it basically inherits the transform of this. So it takes its transforms and its rotations, and it sits right there. But then since we moved it up, now it moves up 1 unit from here, right? And that's essentially just how parenting works. Right, and that's how that works. Okay, cool. So if I take this and move it around, we have that. And let's actually go back to our IK. And let's jump into here. And I want to turn up the stretch so that we can actually see if this sits in the middle there. Yeah, there it is. And I have control over this. I can move it around. Let's actually take this and make sure that I'm promoting the translation and the rotation groups or channels. And then I can move that around. Very nice. I can go in and rotate. And we're sitting in between those two joints, right? And everything is working correctly. Very cool. All right, so we basically have our tool more or less set up. Now, the question is, oh wait, you know what? We forgot something very important here. We forgot to, wait, did we change the name? Oh yeah, we did change the name. Okay, sorry. All right, so now, here's the tricky part. How do we turn this into something that we can reuse? How do we turn this into like a nice little component script, kind of like this, right? The set rest transform is nothing but, just a nested, series of nodes that does something pretty cool. So essentially what we're going to want to do is something similar. We're just going to want to take all this and turn it into a subnet. Now, before I turn this into a subnet, or you do this, anyone does this, right? If you're following along, I would highly suggest making versions of this by just doing this, okay? Let's call this the original, whatever. And this will be V1 or version 1, right? Because then you always have your original setup. Because the thing is like once you go in and start editing things, and it's always good to go back to it. So now that I have that, I'm going to take all of this and just hit Shift C. Boom. Very cool. So now I have my subnet. So I'm going to call this blend transform. All right, but now I need those inputs, right? Like if I'm going to, save this out as a subgraph and then reuse it later, I want to be able to, specify the nodes that I want without having to dive in here and do a whole bunch of stuff. So I want to promote these parameters or promote these values, right? So I'm going to look for the root, I'm going to look for the tip, and I'm going to look for the mid, root, tip, and I'm going to look for the mid. And I think that's essentially, no, there's more that we need to do here. We also need to, right, one thing I want to do is I want to have access to the blend transform as well. Or what I mean by that is the blend value, like if I dive in here, the blend value here, I want access to that, okay? Now, since we're adding this node into here, this blend is going to be within our node's dictionary properties, right? So we want to be able to go into here and access this. Now, what the hell am I talking about? Okay, so just follow along. What we're going to do is do a dictionary build, okay? And we're going to put this into, I'm sorry, not the properties, the parameters, right? So we're going to put this into the node's parameters. Like for instance, okay, let me just kind of explain this really quick. So if I go down to here where this unpack graph is, we're going to look for that node, right? Where is it? So where is it? Upper arm, here it is. So if I open up, right, this is our blend node. If I open this up, we have this blend value, right, within the parameters. So this is what we want to access at the top level of our component script, okay? So let's put down a value float right before our dictionary build. And we're going to take this value, we're going to plug it into here. And you see how it says argument up here, right? We don't want that. What we want is that blend. Okay, boom. And now we have access to that blend. You see how it turned to 0? Because this value that I put here, right, we'll just call it blend or whatever, now that equals 0. So let's jump into here. And now this upper arm twist moved all the way back to the original position. And, you know, quick little tip, again, if you did a whole bunch of stuff and, you know, like you could just really quickly just hit exit, enter, right? And that just kind of resets everything. You know, because sometimes you get into flow state when you're rigging. And you don't want to break your flow state, right? So just boom. Okay, so now we have access to this blend. And if I do this, we can move that around. So let's set a value of 0.5. But then I also want access to this at the top level of my component. So boom. And we're going to call this blend. So a lot of blends here. Cool. So now at the top level, I can mess with this. And the default value is 0.5. So if we made a blend transform, it would just be automatically set to 0.5. Super nice. So that is essentially our script right there. Okay, 42 minutes. All right, I'm trying to do this in an hour. I don't know if I'm going to make it, people. I don't know if I'm going to make it because I'm trying to do this in AEPX script as well. Because, oh, man, I don't know if you just heard all that. I'm just stretching. I got to rest a little bit because this is some mind-numbing stuff we're doing here. Okay, so let's make another joint, right? Because now what I want to do is test to make sure that this is all running, right? That this is all working. Like if I use, that I can use this multiple times, right? Lord, that was difficult to say. All right, so let's do wrist. So I'm just going to add another joint really quick. I'm going to do another blend transforms. And the second transform I'm going to use here is the wrist. So really quickly, I'm just going to add another joint. This is just mid joint, whatever. And I'm going to want to expose it so I can actually see it. Did that work? I think it's mid like that. What did I call it? Let me see. Add joint. Oh, underscore. Man, I'm making this difficult for myself. Okay. Underscore joint. Okay. So now it's in there. All right. So I have my underscore joint. So let's save. And I'm going to make another blend transform. Okay. Again, this is like, you know, if you don't like the reason this is working, I haven't filled out any of the values, is because these values here are already set. Okay. So when you save this out, you might want to clear out all those values. So everything is just kind of set to 0. So you won't get any, you know, weirdness. Okay. But now we're doing this again, right? So we definitely don't want that. So we're going to say shoulder, and the tip is going to be the wrist this time. And the mid joint is going to be that mid joint. Okay. Now this should work. There we go. Nice. So we have a reusable tool that we can just quickly access. It creates a look It creates a blend transform, and we can add it essentially as many times as we want, right? And then this works. Super cool. Look at that. Nice, people. All right, cool. So there's our component script in a nutshell. Now, let's get really crazy, like really, really crazy. And let's do this in AEPX script. All right, we're going to build the exact same thing in AEPX script. Now that I have you on the edge of your seats, I'm going to drink some water. Oh my God, AEPX script, you say? I know. It's so weird, but it's really awesome. Once we kind of get the hang of how it all works, it's actually a little easier to build things in AEPX script. So let's call this AEPX script. All right, now, how are we going to do this? Seriously, we're going to build the same thing with code. Now, there's a few ways to work. Yeah, you're on the edge of your seat, right? For sure. So there's a few ways to do this, right? And there's a couple of tricks that make working in AEPX script much easier. And we'll go over those as we build this. And there's a lot of like similarities, right? That like when you're working with components, whatever. Let's just jump in. I'll shut up. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the component script, and I want to actually see my component script when I'm updating things, right? So check this out. We're going to want to find those nodes just like we did before. So one way we can do this is we can say root is equal to bind input. Okay, and you see how down here it makes that string, right? Oopsie. Let's save. Don't want things failing on me. Okay, and then we can do mid. Let's see. Can I type here? Okay, so now we have our mid, and we have this. So that's very cool, right? But the thing is we're going to want to build a nested component, right? Now we could turn this into a one of these, right? But I really like working with components because it kind of gives you almost like a rigvop kind of workflow. And I think it's really good to at least know how to build like a nested component with AEPX script, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So, this is essentially how you would like set it up this way, right? And then if you hit this little button here, then you can go in and look for those, specific things. But we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it a little different. Let's get rid of that. 55555. Okay. So, in this case, we are going to make the component. Or let's call it, I'm just going to call this a nested component. If anybody from side effects is watching, they're probably freaking out. No, it's not a nested component. It's something else or whatever. I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm calling it. Okay, so here's the blend transform, right? This is going to be our function, right? And I am by no means a Python expert, so I'm not going to, pretend like I'm a, going to tell you like the syntax and everything of how this all works, but I do know a little bit of AEPX script, so we can make our little thing here. So okay, now in order for this to work, if I make my function and then just hit blend transform, and then curly or the little parentheses, I don't get anything, right? Because I actually need to return something. So I need to put in a graph, right? And then I need to say AEPX graph handle. And then within here, I need to return the graph. And then I say graph is equal to the blend transform graph. Okay. Now, what the hell just happened? So, okay, so basically, the way this works is if you go down to the header, and I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. I'm still figuring this out. But if you go down to the header here, there's certain classes that have already been made with each component script, right? So remember how when I first opened this up, it was just these 4 nodes, okay? Now, these 4 nodes are automatically created. And we have this header here. Within the header, all of these nodes are here, right? So we have, you know, this, well, right, the header and the footer, right? So this is, I believe this is our header, and I believe this is our footer. Right, so we're binding the input, right? So that's essentially what this is in code. But the thing is that these are automatically created for us when we create the auto-rig component. So now I have access to this graph, right? So in order to, like, this is the syntax basically we need to use in order to kind of plug everything into the graph, okay? As in like this graph right here. So this is just the syntax. So, you know, just get used to it. All right, so now within here, we're going to want a bunch of different, a bunch of different inputs, right? So we're going to want to set this up down here. Here, let me delete this. The same way we set up our other component. Okay, so let's go and you guys are lucky because I'm not a programmer by any means. Okay, anyway, let me explain myself really quick. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so so these are our inputs, right? So it's gonna be tip string. And again, this is the syntax, everybody. I'm not gonna go too deep into this because you know, I'm just gonna do this and then maybe I'll explain myself because I'm better at explaining with visuals than with words. Okay. So look what just happened. So now we have our inputs, right, within our function, right? So where there's this AEPX script function, that creates our component subnet, right? And then I put in root string, tip string, right? This is the syntax if you want to make these certain variables. And then that gets updated here. So if I were to, like, you know, say test or whatever, that turns into test. But we don't want that. We want to basically create the exact same thing that we made before. Okay, so let's make a couple verbals inside of our graph here. So we want to find the node, right? It's the same thing as before. We want to find these nodes, and in this case, we're going to find the root. So that's going to be our input root here. So if I jump into here, I now have this. Should be here. Oh, here it is. This find node. And this is going to be our root. So let's make some more. We're going to make 2 more because we want to find those 3 nodes, right? All right, we're going to turn this to the tip. And then this is going to be the mid. Okay, great. So now our nodes are found, or at least once we, you know, fill all this out. And okay, so now we need to create our blend node, right? Like, remember how before we created our subgraph in here and we put it into this graph template? Just like that. So now we need to set that up, okay? And one thing I like to do actually when I'm doing a lot of coding is I use PureRef. And this is, you know, again, like I'm not a real programmer. I'm more of an artistic type. So I need visuals when I'm doing this. So since we have that, we could just take that and copy and paste that into PureRef. And I'm going to be using PureRef a lot here. Let's go back to our AEPX script. And if I hit Control-Shift-A, it'll keep that on top. So then I can kind of use this as reference, right, for the way we want to set all this up. So, okay, so we want to create that subgraph, right, that I'm going to merge into my script. or rather my component. So let's make another function. This is going to be blend subnet. How are we doing on time? 55 minutes. I'm definitely going to go over an hour, but hopefully that's okay. Hopefully you guys can stick around. Let's see. All right. So within here, we want the exact same setup as before, right? So let's actually jump into, I can have a couple of things that I can reference, right? All right, so let's take that. Oopsie. Oh, whoops. I need to take a picture. There we go. Okay, so again, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want a root. That's going to be a string. We want the tip. It's also going to be a string. And then we're going to want that blend value, right? Just like before. And that's going to be a float. And in this case, we're going to... Okay, so now we're going to need to build out our X form, right? We need to build out the actual setup. So if I just wanted to see my, you know, what this looks like, why don't we just make a blank X form, right? Because this is eventually the X form I'm going to need to return. We'll say matrix 1, right? This just makes an empty matrix. And then we're going to return the X form. And now I should get rid of the error. So now everything's working again. Okay, so now within this blend transform here, let's get rid of this so we can see what we're doing. Right, so now within this blend transform, let's get that join in, the subnet in there. So to do this, we're going to make a variable. I'm going to call this blend node, right? Because this is going to be the actual node. And then we need to say graph, and then add subnet. And that's going to be the blend subnet. And boom. And what that did was it made that exact same graph template setup that we made before. And this is graph add subnet. Super cool. Boom. So now we have this in there, right? And here's our little subnet. How cool is that? Okay. And then if I go over here, where is it? It should be in there somewhere. Oh, yeah, because I'm not using this. So let's grab that and we'll use this. And then here it is. There's our subnet. Very, very exciting. I find this exciting. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's very exciting. Oh, what did I use to screen clip into PureRef? I used something called Lightshot. It's an amazing little app. It's probably, is it Lightshot? I think it's Lightshot. Hang on, let me open this up. Oops. Yeah, I think it's called Lightshot. Yeah, it's an amazing little, just like you take little pictures of your screen and whatnot. Okay, where were we? Oh my God. All right, so let's set this up, right? Let's set up our blend subnet here. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I need to find, I need to get this transform blend into here, right? So like, you know what I have, let's pretend that I'm completely new to this and I have no idea what the actual syntax is, right? Now there's a really nice trick that you can use. And this is something that I used a lot in Maya, right? When you're coding in Maya, like Maya's great because, you know, you could do an action and then actually see the code for it. So what you could do is you can throw down an AEPX edit graph. Okay, let's get rid of this. And then throw down any node in here. In this case, I want that transform blend node. I'm going to put down an AEPX script node. This is going to go into the second input. Open that up. I'm going to go to decompile. And I'm going to use the second input. And now if I convert this to snippet, I actually have the proper syntax and everything I need to use that the blend transform node. So I have this AEPX transform blend. And then that way I can just quickly know exactly what the proper syntax is. You know, and for instance, like if I wanted to, you know, you can make connections, right? Something like this, convert to snippet. And now you have a better idea on how you connect things, right? So you have this value 1, value. So A is equal. So that's actually pretty simple. You just need to hit A and then just the name of this variable up here, if that makes sense. It'll make sense at some point. Okay, so, and then again, with this whole pure ref thing, you know, I don't want to have to flip back and forth like, wait, what was that called again? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take another screen grab, go like that. And again, this is kind of, you know, I think this is cheating. I don't know if this is cheating or not, but I mean, like I said, there's just too much to remember. So, okay, so I'm going to call this B. We're going to go AEPX transform blend, right? Because that's what the node is called here. And okay, so we're going to set this up properly. A is equal to root. And let's actually open this up. Oh, I did something wrong. B is equal to A is equal to root. That should be working. I wonder why it's not working. Blah. Oh. Yeah, duh. I messed up here. So the root, the actual inputs here, let me get rid of this really quick. Let me just get rid of this. All right, let me show you what went wrong. So I messed up because these inputs here actually need to be X forms, right? They need to be matrices. So I need to go in and change these to matrix 4s, not strings, but matrix 4s. I think at this point we probably would have already finished the actual component, but I don't know. Apex script is definitely worth it, people, because you know, when you got really complicated things going on, it's actually gets easier in a way. Okay, so let's make our connections, right? Isn't that cool? You just kind of type that in here and it just connects automatically. I mean, I just love it. It's magic. And then blend is going to be equal to blend, and boom, now blend is connected. And okay, so again, actually, let's leave that so we have something to return, right? Right? Because if I got rid of this return, it would, I think, it would throw an error. So let's just leave that. Okay, so now let's do the actual transform build part, right? Because we need to get our look up, right? Well, actually, no, let's add our look at first. Let's add the actual look at. Now, again, if I didn't know the name of the actual look at, I would just put it into here and then decompile, but I actually know the name of it, believe it or not. So let's go down here and let's add the look. So we're going to do AEPX transform, and we're going to say look at, this one's kind of weird. So this is dot v2 underscore 0. Okay, so now we add that look at. Right, there it is. Okay, so we got our look at. Now we need to start plugging everything in. So X form is going to be equal to B, right? Because that's our transform blend. That's what we need. And so now we need to do our look at, which is going to be the T, or rather, I'm sorry, not the T, but the tip. Right? Yeah. So now our tip is plugged into there. Now we need to calculate this lookup again. So in order to do that, I'm going to say build. I'm going to make another variable here. I'm going to say build is equal to AEPX transform build. So now I'm going to put down this little build transform here. I'm going to say T is equal to 0. So very similar to the way that we did it before, right? So if I jump into this build transform and hit P, I can see that T is equal to 1, right? Because I set it up here. So if I set that, if I set X to 1, that's equal to, you know. So again, really nice stuff. I'm going to stop doing that because I think you get the point. And now we need to get our final look at, or the look up. So I'm going to say up is equal to build times B. Right? Oh no, we need to build times the root, right? Because we want that build and then we want to multiply by the root like we did before. And now here, the look up is going to be equal to up. And boom, very cool. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to take this look at axis and turn it around, right? We don't want that negative z. So we're going to say look at axis. And I think you're starting to see the pattern here. So equal to, and we want a vector. We're going to say 0, 0, 1. And now that's equal to 1. So that should work. And now what we want to do is just to kind of set this up the exact same way as before, I'm going to say xform equals look. And now we return this xform. Fantastic. Okay, so now we've set this up within our subnet, which is super cool. Henry the Jedi. Yeah, these are some pretty advanced topics. You know, as advanced as they are, it's like they're also kind of like the basic way to work within Apex. You know, I really do think this is going to get a lot easier in the future, in the near future. But yeah, like this stuff is super powerful, but a little complex to start off with. Okay, cool. So now we have our blend subnet in there, and you know, we got to go in and rename it, right? So let's see. How do we do that? So let's find, how are we going to do this? I kind of forget how to do this. Let me see. So n is equal to, I'm going to say mid node data. Let me think. Right. Okay. So I need to rename the node, right? So I'm going to make a quick string here. So I'm going to say n is equal to mid dot node data. And what that does is this actually just returns the name of our node, right? Of that specific node. So we're looking for this mid node here, and that's going to return the name here. So that's going to actually be a string, and then we're going to do plus underscore blend node. Okay? And now if I jump into here, that's called node right now. But if I say, right, we want this blend node, I say update the node, and we're going to say n is equal to n. And now we have this. Now the problem is that we haven't set up our, we haven't set up these inputs, right? The root, tip, string, mid within our function here. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So the root we want is a string. It's going to be shoulder. And the other one we want is going to be the elbow. And the mid is going to be, what was that? The upper arm twist, I think it was. All right. Okay, cool. So now the upper arm twist blend node. Okay, cool. So I think everything is working. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So now let's start actually making the connections. And let's like the I can't talk and type at the same time. Let's kind of organize things here. Because again, you want to know what you're doing at all times, because you come back to a script and everything is, you know, completely intense and crazy and lots of crazy stuff are going on. So you want to know like where you're at. Okay, so let's make the connections now. And that's about the last thing we need. No, not the last thing. There's a couple other things, but whatever. Let's make the connections. So let's connect the root to our subnet. Okay. So this is actually kind of nice. I like this syntax. So it's xform out, and then we say connect, and now we just need our blend node, and that's going to be xform in. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not xform in. It's root in, right? Because that's what we named. That's what we named that before, right? So now if I go to here, we see that that's plugged in. So let's go ahead and take this. We'll copy this. And now we're going to get the tip, and that's going to be tip in. All right, so now we have these two connections. And let's make our last connection, which is going to be the blend node xform out. Okay, blend node xform out dot connect. And that's going to go into this mid, right, that we set up before. And that's going to go into the parent in. Boom. Now, again, we have this issue of you know, it being set according. We're inheriting too many matrices right now. Okay, because we're inheriting the parent matrix, right, and its original rest position. But remember, before we zeroed out that rest position, so that's what we need to do now. So again, how do we do that? You know, again, you could just go here and say set rest transform. Okay, delete this because I just want this in our syntax, right? I just want to know what that looks like. So then, cool. I can take that. I can take a picture of it. You know, I can copy and paste it. You know, you can do whatever you want. Okay. So let's go here. This is going to be set rest transforms of our let's call this child, whatever. I'm trying to move here, people, because you know. Okay, so let's do a graph component. And then this is going to be set rest transform. Okay, so if I put that down, all right, let's jump into here. The set rest transform component should be the last node that we put in here, right? So here it is. So there's a couple things we need to fill out here. We need to fill out the node ID, and that's going to be our mid, right? So that automatically gets connected. All right, there's that connection way back here. And then we need to fill in this X form. So what we can do is we can do a couple things, but I'm going to want a little node in here. So what we can do is we can actually just say like null X form is equal to matrix for 1. And then we're going to say X form is equal to that null X form. Bink. Cool. So that's all set up. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do is return graph. Okay, so this should be working. I wonder why it's not working. All right. So we also want to, all right, there was one last thing we wanted to do here. We want the connection to our, what's it called? Yeah, we wanted the connection to the blend, but for some reason this isn't working. So let's figure out why this isn't working. This shouldn't be sitting in the center here because we're not getting any blend, right? We're not going to any joints here. So let me see. Why is this not working? I mean, it should be working. So we go here, we have our X form out. This is going into, interesting. So the X form is not, oh, I did the X from again. Oh, there. I keep on writing X from. Okay, so let's actually get a little blend something in here so I can actually mess with this a little bit. Yeah, right. So, okay, let's do a, I'm going to just say B so I don't have all these, you know, blend variables all over the place. And I'm going to make a bind input. And this is going to be, we'll just say 1, 0. Actually, no, let's make this a default value of 0.5. Okay. Boom. So now I have this blend float here. And if I just go to here and just put B, it should just go into the middle. Ah, right. Okay, so the reason it's not working is because, we added this, right? We added our subnet, but we didn't go back in and update the actual parameter dictionary that we did before, right? So we need to actually go in and update the parameters of that node. So what does that look like? It's actually not too bad. We actually just set this up within this update node here, right? So within the update node, we're just going to say params or parameters is equal to, and we want curly brackets, and we're going to want to find the blend value. So this is the syntax here. So we're going to say B. Uh-oh. Things didn't work properly. Let me see. Params equals that. Let's see what's going on here. So B has not been defined. Let me think. Right, because I can't use, right, yeah. Because I can't just use a global variable within the function. Okay, there. There we go. Now it's working. Boom. Look at that, people. So cool. All right. And again, let's say we wanted to use this not once, but twice. Okay. Let's jump to shoulder. We're going to go wrist. And what was that joint called? I think it was called mid joint, right? There. So we basically just set up the exact same thing 2 times. One in a component script, right? So we set it up in the component script. We did it by hand, which in this case might have been a little bit more straightforward. I don't know. That's your opinion. And then we also did it in AEPX script. Okay. Now, again, it might have seemed a little weird to do an AEPX script, but AEPX script is like, you know, once you really get the hang of it, it's actually way more easy. Way more easy, right? So, you know, if I wanted to say, save this out as a component script so I can use it again, right, at any point, you could take that, copy it, and just, I actually haven't done this in a while, so now I have this blend transform here, and you just give it a name. And I actually don't know if there's like another way to do this, like an updated way to do this in Houdini 20.5. But basically, you know, I would call this like MR component, right? Because like my name is Max Rose and everything, and I made it. And we're going to call this blend transform, right? And then you would save this out to your Houdini documents folder under something, under a folder called AEPX graphs. Okay, AEPX graphs. And you save it into there and you restart Houdini. Okay, and then you can pull it back in. Pull it back in, which is really, really cool. So, you know, I have like a couple of things I made before, like a simple look, right? So this is something that I've made before. Just a little subgraph. I actually made this way back in the day. And let me just double check really quick. And I want to make sure that it actually is AEPX graphs here. No, we want to do that. Whoopsie, I'm all over the place. Let me see. So this, yeah, it's documents. And it's, okay, sorry. It's not AEPX graphs. It's AEPX graph. Okay? Forgive me. All right, just making sure. But yeah, that's essentially how you can make yourself a tool. Okay? And I'm not going to do it now because you have to like restart the program, and you know, I just rather not do that. But you know, you save it out, right? And you want to save it as the primitive, not as a point, but as a primitive. Let me do that. And then you could pull it back in within your component script whenever you want. And the AEPX script is kind of the same thing, right? You can take this, you know, if you wanted to use it, let me see, edit graph. You could just take this, you know, copy everything, and you still have your, you know, you have your blend transform here, but this is, you know, you made this with AEPX script, so it's like super neat and tidy. So yeah, that's essentially how you do that. Cool. So that's the end of this stream. How long did we go for? Let me see. All right, 119. That's not too bad. yeah, I hope you guys learned something. I sure as hell did, like always. And, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, if you guys got any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm sure some people here are watching from the Discord channel. Let me know on Discord. And most of all, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching.